Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and we have a super cool set to take a look at today as we have a brand new Takara Tomy set who has also jumped in and begun celebrating the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park, and you can very clearly see that we've got 3 new figures here, 2 of which are just new paint variants, 1 of which is an entirely new figure. We've got a T-Rex, a Velociraptor, and a Dilophosaurus, and you can see we've got that gorgeous Jurassic Park 30th anniversary artwork here on the box, and you can see again the Takara Tomy logo up there. If we turn it to the side, the JP 30th anniversary logo again. Pretty much the same thing over here, minus that logo, but we've got the JP30 logo up there. And then here on the back, you can kind of see like a sneak peek of the figures. Interestingly enough, the Raptor is brown in the packaging, but we have it green here on the back. I don't know why. But it's super cool to have this from Takara Tomy. I was wondering if they were going to release anything for the 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park, and I was really excited to see that they did. So, let's pop the box open and bring in our figures. So here is our Velociraptor, here is our T-Rex, and then here is the Dilophosaurus, whose frill is absolutely insane. Let me reposition that. There we go. Now we got the frill in a better spot. So we've got all 3 figures here out of the packaging and looking really cool. I think, as always, Takara Tomy's done a pretty good job here. I can immediately take notice to the fact that the Dilophosaurus for some reason doesn't have nail paint. That's a little bit of a bummer, but they still look really cool. And the T-Rex itself has kind of like that Red Rex sort of look almost to it, which I also really like. It doesn't really look like the actual T-Rex from Jurassic Park as far as the colors go, so I think they were kind of intending to give it that Red Rex kind of look, more like the novel version of the T-Rex. And the Raptor itself looks really nice. So very excited about this. Love the fact that Takara Tomy has released a JP30 set, so let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So, we'll begin with our Velociraptor. We have reviewed this figure in the past as far as the sculpt goes. This is definitely not the first time that Takara Tomy has used this sculpt in the past. So we've got a sculpt that we've already taken a look at, but we do need to look at what's different on this one, and that would be the coloration. So you can see that they've gone ahead and created this with the Jurassic Park Velociraptor colors, and I think they did a pretty darn good job, honestly, especially when it comes to matching the tones of color that you would see on a JP Raptor. I think straight away it looks really quite nice. We've got the green eye there with the black slit-like pupil. You've got some darker browns there around the eye, lighter browns up into the snout. You can see the mouth is currently open. We've got a nicely painted tongue in there. The teeth are painted with a white. They're all kind of jumbled together, as you often see from Takara Tomy, but that's not really that big of a deal. The mouth closes very nicely. Obviously, we have articulation there, and it works pretty smoothly. As you move down, you can see that we again have the variations of kind of like lighter browns, but you have some of those darker browns moving along the upper side of the Raptor, and then you see more of those darker browns as you lead down into the hands. You can see the nails are painted with a nice blackish tone. The Raptor's hands in general have that very nice Jurassic Park Raptor look. I think they had used this sculpt on Velociraptor Blue, but I think it actually looks better as the JP Raptor. You can see again more of those darker browns moving along the back, and then you can see more of it here on the top of the thigh, from the hip leading into the thigh, and you can see running down the front of the leg down into the foot. And you can also see again the nails are painted nicely there on the feet. The dew claws are actually painted as well, so that's super impressive right there. Nice to see. The legs also articulate forward and back like they did previously. And then as you lead out the length of the tail, you have more of those darker browns up there on the top, more of the lighter browns on the side, but you can also see a nice striping effect moving out here through the length of the tail. As always, we have those joints there on the tail that you have always had on Takara Tomy figures, so that's not exactly a surprise. But as a whole, I think the figure looks really, really well done. Definitely my favorite version of a Takara Tomy Velociraptor so far, and they've had quite a few that have released, but this is definitely my favorite out of all of them. I would have actually liked to have seen them release this one individually, because I would have liked to have grabbed a few more just because it is so nice looking. Then we've also got the T-Rex, and the T-Rex as well is a figure that was released prior. This was originally, I think, released as the JP Tyrannosaurus, and then they had released a different version with an updated sculpt that I felt like looked a lot more screen accurate, but this one as well still looks pretty nice. And again, the fact that we have reviewed this one in the past means we don't need to do it again, but we do need to, of course, take a look at the difference, which is the coloration. So you can see we've got the kind of like a somewhat reddish brown here for the face. You can also see a little darkening there with a darker tone of brown in the eye socket area. Nicely painted eye, very small but very nicely placed. You can also see the pupil there on the eye, and again you've got some darker tones moving up and over the top of the head with a black, and you can see the kind of design up there. The jaw is articulated, really articulates out super wide, and it's actually super smooth as well. But you can see we've got like a nice purplish sort of tone there for the inside of the mouth. You can see the teeth again are sculpted pretty nicely, painted pretty nicely, just like they were the last time around. And even though they're all sculpted together, I think they would have looked better individually sculpted, but they don't look bad by any means. And the actual sculpt is really quite vibrant on this one, so that's also a plus. Definitely looks really good. I feel like this sculpt actually was a nice one to choose because it almost has that old Kenner Red Rex sort of look as far as the overall appearance to it, whereas the more recently released version of the Takara Tomy T-Rex has more of an actual film, like screen accurate version. So I feel like maybe this one is the better choice as far as releasing this particular figure with almost that Red Rex color scheme. But you can see again as those reddish browns move down through the course of the body, you also have that darker tone moving along the top, and it continues to stripe down the course of the back here all the way out onto the tail, and you can see that we have some really nice striping out there on the tail as well. Some striping's a little more soft and subtle, some striping's a little bit more intense, but I think it looks good overall. You can also see there's a lighter tone here on the underside of the T-Rex as well as you move down there. Nice light tone running down from the throat all the way out onto the tail. Again, on top of the articulated jaw, we also have articulated legs, just like the raptor, and then of course the articulated joints in the tail with those ball joints that some people absolutely despise. The nails are painted on the hands, and the nails are also painted on the feet, and you can also see the dew claws as well are painted. So overall, I would say that this might be my favorite out of all of the Takara Tomy Tyrannosaurs as well, just because it has an absolutely awesome old school kind of vintage Red Rex look to it, and I actually really quite like the sculpt, I think better than I did the first time around. So really cool T-Rex as well. And then we've got the Dilophosaurus. Now the Dilophosaurus is a brand new figure. This is entirely new as far as the sculpt goes, but you can see we've got a pretty decent head sculpt for our Dilophosaurus. Nicely painted eye. We have some nice light greens there on the snout leading up into the crest, and then some darker greens leading down there into the face. They didn't perfectly capture the likeness of the Jurassic Park Dilophosaurus by any means, but I think it still looks pretty decent. We have an articulated jaw, and that looks okay as well. As you close the jaw, you can clearly see we've still got some pretty big teeth there sticking out, which isn't the best thing in the world, but it doesn't look terrible either, I guess. Again, it's got some decent sculpt, decent paint. The inside of the mouth sports a nice pinkish tone, and the teeth look pretty much just as the teeth did on all of the others. Again, all bunched together, a little bit too big and bulky, but not terrible. You can obviously see we've got an articulated frill for the Dilophosaurus, and it does look really cool there, looking at it from the front. It also looks pretty decent over here from the side. You can see that there is actually paintwork for the back of the frill as well, as we have that darker tone running along the inner part of the frill and the lighter tone moving along the outer edge. And then again, we've got the nice mixture of reds and yellows, and then the darker tone running along the edge of the frill. Very Jurassic Park-ish as far as the coloration goes. And the actual sculpt looks pretty darn decent. Not perfect to the texturing you would see on a Dilophosaurus from Jurassic Park, but by no means does it look bad. We've also got this green here, the darker green, running along the back of the Dilophosaurus, and when you look at it from up above, you can see it has that nice slender appearance like the dinosaur does in the film. As you move down the course of the neck, you can see some skin wrinkles and stuff there in the lower part of the throat, some nice looking skin texture as well. As you move down, you've got the arms sculpted out, nicely sculpted fingers. The nails also are sculpted nicely, but they don't have any paintwork, unfortunately, on them. As you move back into the stomach and you get nice and close, you can really see how good the actual skin texture looks. I think it looks really nice on this Dilophosaurus. You can also see a few random ridges there moving along the back of the spinal column of the dinosaur. As you move back here into the thigh and stuff, you can see the hip a little bit, but you can see the thigh sports a nice muscle definition. And again, we can see the darker greens running along the top, lighter greens here on the side, and you can see the darker greens running along the front of the leg, and then lighter greens moving along the back. As you move down into the foot sculpt, you've got some nice scoots down the toes. Very nice looking foot sculpt, nicely sculpted nails. Again, no paint, unfortunately. And of course, the dew claws are present, present, but there's no paint on those either. As you move up, you've got a few skin wrinkles there back behind the thigh, and then a really nice curve in the tail. This is the first time, as far as the figures in this set go, that we didn't have two ball joints moving out. You've only got one on the Dilophosaurus, and then a really strong curve to the tail as you lead out. You can see again the underside also looks pretty decent as far as the detailing goes. Really quite impressive, I would say, right here in this area of the stomach region leading up into the chest. And then if you take a look at the opposing side, you're not going to see a whole lot of difference except for the positioning of the legs. Even though the legs are articulated, just like the previous few figures, both legs are articulated. They kind of sit differently. Just slightly, you can see how the left leg's a little bit more forward than the right leg. But all of the paint looks pretty nice over here. Very smooth transitions and everything. You can see the tail curves toward us here on this side as well. And one thing that I did notice is pretty cool about this is you can actually pop these off. So you can technically take off the frill, and now you would have the Dilophosaurus without the frill as well. So that's pretty neat. Even though you can now see a very big open hole on the side of the face, you can still pop that off regardless and have a frill-less version of the Dilophosaurus. So really happy that they finally have added a Dilo to the Takara Tomy line, something that previously they did not have.
Now, I don't feel like we really need to measure these figures, because if you are familiar with the Takara Tomy brand, you're going to be familiar with the size of their figures. They usually never differ too far from each other, or at least these smaller versions don't. They're usually all right there in the same similar size range. So rather than measuring them, we'll just do some size comparisons. So there we've got Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Dilophosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line stepping in for a comparison next to the Takara Tomy JP30 set, and you can see again they're pretty small. The Raptor just decided to move on its own, so I guess that thing's alive, but you can see that again they're pretty much in the size range you would expect them to be. And here we have brought in the super-sized version of the Toy Monster International Captives JP30 T-Rex, and you can see it's very, very similar in size to the Red Rex version here in the Takara Tomy set. So if you do happen to have that super-sized T-Rex, you'll absolutely have a good idea of the size of it there next to the Takara Tomy version. And of course, the Raptor and Dilophosaurus, you can see, aren't too far off either as far as the size. The Raptor a bit smaller, but not too far off. We also have the previously released version of the Takara Tomy T-Rex, which you can see this is the more recent version of the JP Rex, and you can see a very different looking sculpt compared to the one that we have in this set, but you can also see that again they are a very similar size, and again helping to give you an idea of the size of these other figures here. And again, for a final comparison, we've got a Mattel Velociraptor stepping in back there to jump in for a size and show you that these Takara Tomy figures are a bit smaller. If you are unfamiliar with the Takara Tomy line, this should help to show you again that they are basically minifigures, but a little bit bigger than what a minifigure would usually be. But hopefully one of these figures has, again, given you a pretty good idea of the size if you don't have any Takara Tomy figures in your collection. But we've reviewed most of this stuff in the past as far as the actual sculpts go, so we don't need too many comparisons. Hopefully you, again, will have been able to figure it out with at least one of these comparisons we've done. So this brand new Jurassic Park 30th anniversary Takara Tomy set is really cool. Actually a lot cooler in person than I expected it to be. You know, I was pretty happy and pretty excited about it, but the fact that the Raptor and the T-Rex were reused sculpts, you know, and the only new sculpt that we really had was the Dilophosaurus, kind of was a little bit of a letdown to me. You know, when I first found out it was announced, I was really over the moon excited about a JP30 set from Takara Tomy, but then finding out that they were repacks, or repaints I should say, of most of them was a little bit of a downside, but having it here, I'm actually pretty happy about it because I think the Raptor sculpt looks excellent with this coloration on it. It absolutely has that Jurassic Park Raptor look to it, and the tones of color used look so good on this, so easily the best version of this Velociraptor that Takara Tomy has released yet. The T-Rex as well, again, is another one that was a reused sculpt, a previously released version, but now with that kind of almost Red Rex-ish sort of colors to it, it looks so much nicer here. Way better than, honestly, any Takara Tomy T-Rex has looked so far in the Jurassic line, and I absolutely think this is a great-looking version of the T-Rex. Love the colors, love the actual paint application, love the sculpt, everything about that is great. On top of that, we also have the Dilophosaurus, and the Dilophosaurus is a brand new figure, newly sculpted and released by Takara Tomy. I think it looks really good, maybe not perfect to the way it appears in Jurassic Park, but they basically got the gist of it. The coloration as well isn't perfect, and again, that's pretty much what you expect when it comes to Takara Tomy. You don't expect overly intricate paint applications, and the Dilophosaurus does have a somewhat intricate paint application in Jurassic Park, so I kind of expected what we have here, and I think it looks pretty nice. You know, all three of these sport some nice articulation, which is pretty fun. So if you are interested in this set has only just recently released. It may not be available on eBay or AliExpress quite yet. Sometimes it takes a little time for this stuff to start showing up on sites like that, but I will try my best to find a link to one of these if you are interested. Otherwise, keep an eye out. Definitely grab this set when it does officially show up online if you are interested. Another huge thank you goes out to Dino Mike Mac, my good buddy, who was kind enough to help me acquire this from his local toy store in Hong Kong. And again, make sure you guys pick this set up, and also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.